it is suspected that the guards at the federal jail where Epstein was found dead, it's suspected that they fell asleep and not only did not check him every half hour, every 15 minutes, that's being reported different times, but when they were supposed to, and instead wrote down on the logs that they did, which would be against federal law, of course. Surveillance video reviewed after the death, it showed guards that never made some of the checks they noted in the log, and that's according to the person familiar with the investigation. And of course, this comes after news that the warden of that facility has been reassigned, and two guards, these two guards in particular, have been placed on, they've been placed on leave. And we also learned that federal employees have lawyered up. So there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, and there was screaming and shrieking coming from Jeffrey Epstein's cell in the morning. Now he died at night, but apparently they're like, that guy we think might have tried to commit suicide 3 weeks ago. It was the leader of a child pedophile ring that and new world leaders, including our own from Democratic and Republican sides, and but also world leaders like Mohammed bin Salman. And there's a shrieking and screaming coming from his cell. Let's not check in on him. So we talked about this a lot on Old School last night. So that's another one of our shows with me, Ben Mankiewicz, and Ron Perlman, the actor. And check that out. If you remember, you can get the whole show, tyt.com/join. And by the way, you can get most of Old School as a podcast for free as well. Check that out wherever you get podcasts. Anyway, bottom line is, we all agreed that if you wanted to set up a scenario where it would be an ideal way to launch 1,000 conspiracy theories, this is exactly what you would have done. You would have said, all right, let's take him off a suicide watch. Let's move out the guy who's his cellmate. Let's doctor the logs. Let's make sure that he's not being watched. Let's ignore his screams. I mean, and the list goes on and on. And if he did commit suicide, man, they set it up in such a way that no one will ever believe it for the rest of time.
I don't think so. I think we just aren't listening. Everything you just said, sure, it sounds crazy if it isn't exactly what makes up the problems with our criminal justice system. The only difference is this is a rich white man. But people commit suicide so often in jails. People get drugs in. People are beaten, people are raped. Guards don't do what they're supposed to do. Some guards rape, some guards beat. Some guards lie on forms. This happens every single day. And so the idea that something that happens every single day, all of those things on the list is harder to believe than a whole wild conspiracy theory. It's just crazy. And I know, I'm not, there's so many people who believe, no, it has to be a hit, it has to be this. And I'm just like, it just looks like Tuesday. It is just what happens. The only difference is like, but they should have been watching. There are a lot of huge cases. Do you remember the guy where the women were found in his house? One of them crawled out of an opening, I think it was in Ohio, and he had been holding women for like 20 years. One of them had had a baby. He killed himself. That was also a high profile case. He was just Hispanic. It happens so often. It's just, this is why we need criminal justice reform, because things like this happen and continue to happen. And this warden in this case was reassigned. He wasn't fired after somebody died under his watch, because it's just normal.
I mean, I agree with you that there is a problem in the criminal justice system, but this is literally the most high profile case out there right now. And I kind of agree with this theory that like if someone wanted him to kill himself, all of the pieces were in place to make it easy for him. I mean, they took him off suicide watch on Friday. Taking someone off suicide watch doesn't mean do the opposite of watch, don't watch. It means, it means that you're gonna just treat him the way you normally would, which is monitor every 30 minutes. And I just feel like they created a scenario where if you wanted him dead and you knew he was already suicidal, let's just make it easier for him to kill himself.
Ben had that same theory on Old School last night. So everybody's got a different theory. Look, I want to be super clear, and I've said this from the minute that it happened. I have no idea what happened. I wasn't in that jail cell. Do I believe for sure that it was a hit and he was killed? Of course I don't know that for sure. That's crazy talk to say that you know it for sure. What evidence do you have? Direct evidence. We have a lot of circumstantial evidence that it was a weird situation. On the other hand, the people who say, the government said it must be true. Really? Really? No, I don't accept that either. And then there's this third possibility, which is, if the guy tried to commit suicide 3 weeks ago and we want him gone, look guys, you're not gonna have to get your hands dirty at all. Just set up a situation where no one is checking on him, and for long stretches, make sure there's no cellmate, etc., that would then yell out to the guards. But his cellmate got bailed out on Friday. Who bailed him out? I don't know. It might be totally legitimate, right? But if I was an investigator, I'd definitely look at that just in case.
Yeah, I did like a little research on like suicide watch, right? And it turns out like it's often that people who are suicidal request to their lawyer that they officially be taken off of suicide watch, because part of that entails being checked every 15 minutes, which means in the middle of the night you're woken up every 15 minutes. So it's excruciating and awful, and everybody wants to be off of suicide watch. And a lot of people who are suicidal have to have this conversation with their lawyers. And there was a lawyer, Rebecca Kavanaugh, tweeting about it, that it happens. It sounds absurd, but that often lawyers have to request that their client be taken off of suicide watch.
Well, also, if you are on suicide watch and you are suicidal, I would request, if I were in that scenario, I would request to be taken off of it, because then they're not checking every 15 minutes. It's almost like, I'm not suicidal, guys, but like, no, really, I really want to kill myself. I'm just not gonna let you know that.
Yeah, and so, look, I keep saying, if they have the surveillance tapes, then obviously they have some of them because they saw the guards weren't checking.
Yeah.
Did anybody go in the cell or didn't they? I can't believe that it's been this many days and they still haven't, first of all, they haven't ruled it a suicide yet. So that's super interesting. And then secondly, they haven't yet said, oh guys, no, stop it with the conspiracy theories. Nobody went into his jail cell. We checked the surveillance videos and it's absolutely clear that nobody went. They haven't said that. They haven't said that at all. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. I'm just saying they haven't said it, which after all these days of the most prominent case in the world, it's a little surprising. And to your point, Brooke, I both, and it's not really agreeing or disagreeing, but I agree with you that it's literally a crime what happens in these prisons with such incredible regularity. So there's the case of mysterious suicides like Sandra Bland, right? And then there is just a rampant crime that is allowed without anyone caring. And I've been saying this for decades on this show. Yeah, that's how old I am. They're like, oh, prison rape, haha, everybody jokes about it. Like, what? Why? Why is rape allowed in prison? What an insane thing that is. And we all, as a society, accept it like, oh, of course, if you go to prison, you'll obviously be raped. And none of the hundreds of guards inside the prison will do anything about it.
Some of the guards are participating. Women inmates have reported rapes by the guards. And think about this, if it wasn't so normal, if you were a guard who was guarding Jeffrey Epstein, you know that there are cameras in the prison. You work for the feds, you know that. If it wasn't so normal to just be lax about your behavior, would you go to sleep for 3 hours while you were supposed to be guarding Jeffrey Epstein and then lie on the form if it wasn't something that you knew you could get away with because you do it all the time and everybody does it?
That's 100% true. But the one exception I'll take with what you're saying, Brooke, though, is to put the point Samia made. This is the most high-profile case in the world, And so if ever there was a time not to sleep for 3 hours, if ever there was a time to be careful, if ever there was a time to continue the suicide watch, or maybe even put a camera inside his jail cell, which I would normally be 1,000% against. But this would be the time.
I don't know if I believe,
sorry, no, go ahead.
I don't know if I believe this is the most high profile. I think the victims are white. I think I would argue that R. Kelly, where there was a videotape of him urinating on a child, allegedly, and he was still making, platinum albums after that, is finally being prosecuted by the feds. And all of these little black girls who nobody really cared about for all of these years, he just finally got dropped by his record company. I would argue that that is the most high case.
I think the R. Kelly story obviously is huge and very important to address as well, but with Epstein, you have very high profile people. People are linking him to current and former presidents. Like it's just, it's hard to deny the significance of that.
We just have that people say this is possible. We have videos of him being friendly with the president.
Okay, but let me throw out one other name just to give you a sense of why I think it's the most high profile case and why it'd be absolutely insane to have this level of incompetence in a case like this. So R. Kelly victimized all those folks that said, first of all, Epstein also went after non-white girls too. So he was equal opportunity in that sense, yes.
Right.
I mean, the story of the 14-year-old that he sexually assaulted in New York is just heart-wrenching, absolutely heart-wrenching. The way he lured her into the apartment, used other women to lure her in, and then to the gradual steps he did to prey on her and then eventually rape her. But anyway. But it's not just presidents and former presidents that makes it. I mean, R. Kelly didn't urinate on presidents. I mean, so let's just keep it real as to the relevance of the power involved, right? But I don't know why, but Ron last night on Old School was saying Vladimir. Now I do know why, but he was saying Vladimir Putin because it looks like a Putin job, right? And now a lot of you get upset about that, etc. Look, there's a million theories. Nobody's saying anything's a fact, right? But to me, another guy jumped out from the list that no one is talking about. Mohammed bin Salman. He was very close friends with him. He had a picture with him. Mohammed bin Salman had seen Epstein many times. And so here's a guy that we know assassinates people in other countries. Sends his hitmen to go chop people up in other countries. So am I positive that Mohammed bin Salman had Epstein killed? Of course not, I have no idea. But if I was someone in charge of guarding Epstein, and I know that several of the people that he's connected to have assassinated people in other countries, I'd watch him 24/7. If I wanted to launch 1,000 conspiracies, I'd say, don't worry about it. Hey, let's all go to sleep at the same time. Well, hey, you made it this far. You must really like the Young Turks. Thank you, we really appreciate you. Now, another easy way to keep supporting us also helps keep your internet activities and data private, all with a push of the NordVPN app. Head to nordvpn.com/TYT right now for 75% off of your next 3 years.